So meanwhile, we're going to introduce the guests who are in the studio. We're going with youth and beauty first. And then we're going with agelessness after that. Ageless persons in the studio. None other than Miss Teresa Pitcairn. Miss T, good morning. Welcome back to For the Record.
So thank you very much, Mr. OC, or as Steve would say, Mr. For the Record. And by the way, I'll take that. Yeah, so thank you so very much for inviting us on this morning. And it's my pleasure to have an opportunity to have a conversation with the public, the audience, folks that are on island and folks that are off island, and to have what I hope will turn out to be a useful conversation. Steve and I and Roy met last week, and we thought we had a bit of a chat. We thought through how we would want to discuss today's discussion, have a discussion this morning, and the way we landed, Roy and Steve, and I always call them affectionately by Roy and Steve, obviously. And they will look at the historical situation and where we found her, why and where we are today, coming out of globalization. And what I thought that I would do, because I've been having some moments now with my weekends, I've just been reading voraciously. So I reread things that I forgot about, like James Baldwin, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Native Son, Bluest Eyes by Toni Morrison. So I've just been immersed in a lot of reading these past 3 weekends. And it actually started because my kids were in the BRAC with my husband and I was home alone. And I just said, well, gee whiz, how often do I get this opportunity? So for the last 3 weekends, that's pretty much what I've been doing and just reading. And the hope is to see where we are today and use that historic experience to add some flavor to what we're about to discuss today.
Excellent. Doc, good morning. Welcome back. Miss T, this is your first time in our new studio.
That would be correct. I even went to the front door because I didn't know that there was some other entrance.
Yeah, we have a side entrance. The front portion will soon be finished now. Wrapping up things. I think they're going to be putting in a new front door, but we're going to have an excellent reception area as well. Doc, morning.
Good morning, Mr. For the Record, and good morning to all your listeners in For the Record land and those in the Cayman diaspora and those who listen to you Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. It's good to be back. Today is an exceptional day. I am here with Dr. Pitcairn and Dr. Roy Bawden. And, we're 3 Caymanians who care about our history and our culture. And but I started to think just last week and the week before, why is it that we're going to do this in February when the so-called Black History Month? But when it comes to history in Cayman, Black history or white history or blue history or whatever, history is history, and our history is about all people, about all colors in Cayman, not just white history and black history. But I understand the nuances of why they call it Black history. It's because we are on the bottom of the cultural ethos, and we are in the Caribbean, and we were brought here. We didn't come as the tired, what they say in America,
tired, huddled
masses. Yes,
masses. We were brought here mostly to make money from our work, from our strength, and from the brutality that we face, so that. We were not the conquerors, we were not the colonialists, and it's the colonialists and the conquerors that write the history. And so that's why our history is relegated only to 1 month of the year. But we we don't mind coming here, but we say that we know our history, and we celebrate our history every day of our lives, and we experience our history every day of our lives, not like some other ethnic groups of people.
Okay, and we want to say good morning to our esteemed panelist, Mr. Roy Borden. I want you to pull that mic a little closer to you, Mr. Borden, and say good morning. Welcome to For the Record. We always hear you on the other end of the broadcast. Good to have you in the studio this morning, sir.
Well, it's great to be here, Mr. Moderator, as I call you, and I want to congratulate you on the new studio, man. This is the kind of place befitting of a moderator such as you. And
Thank you.
I am humbled to be here this morning to christen it in company of the doc, as I call him, and our good friend Dr. Ms. Pitcairn, Teresa.
Yes.
Yeah, I call her my fourth sister. It's great to be here, and it's great to share some ideas and to hear what your listeners are saying about this experience. And I want to add to what the doc say. You know, people like us, and especially those of us from Bordentown, which was a slave capital, we came here as chattel. Our ancestors came here as chattel. Not much worth except for the strength they had. And so, pardon me if I say it, I consider myself in a class above those people who I call economic migrants.
Okay, with that, we're going to take our first commercial break. When we return, I'll give you a little preview about Black History Month, its observance and everything, and then we will get right into the conversation. So don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. My pleasure to have in the studio with me this morning Mr. Roy Borden, Dr. Teresa Pitcairn, Dr. Steve MacPhail. So let your friends and neighbors, let everybody know who's on For the Record. Of course, we would have something on Facebook or on social media indicating the fact that they are here as well. I have one birthday shout out, and then I'm going to share with our listening and viewing audience something on Black History Month. And after that, we will have Ms. Teresa lay out this morning's agenda for you in terms of the discussion. So we've been asked to send birthday greetings to Eckert MacPhail, who will be celebrating his birthday on Wednesday the 18th. Greetings coming from his parents and his siblings. So, folks, let's look. AI-generated overview, Black History Month, is an annual observance dedicated to honoring the achievements, contributions, and central roles of Black people in history and society. Celebrated in February in the United States and Canada, and in October in the UK. It focuses on education, reflection, and recognizing the impact of Black heritage. Let me give you some of the key details about Black History Month. Its origins. It was founded by historian Carter G. Woodson in 1926 as, quote, unquote, Negro History Week. It expanded to a month-long celebration in 1970 to honor the legacy of Black people. The timing of it, in the U.S. and Canada, February was chosen to align with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln, February 12th, and Frederick Douglass, February 14th. In the UK, it's observed in October, established in 1987 to coincide with the traditional gathering of African chiefs and leaders. Its significance: it highlights the resilience, creativity, and accomplishments of Black individuals, often countering overlooked or distorted historical narratives. With that, I'm going to throw the mic over to Ms. Teresa.
Thank you so very much for that, OC, and I'll get straight to the point. So Cayman is like a laboratory where the need for economic development and foreign expertise has created a unique, high-paced, and at times precarious social environment where Caymanians are now having to navigate their own survival in their own country. As I mentioned at the start of the show, Steve, Roy, and I met last week, and we started to have conversations around how did we get here? What steps can we now take to move into the future to give the community some hope? Because whilst there are some people, as Dr. Roy mentioned at the very beginning, he's not necessarily an economic migrant, and that's not said to be in a pejorative way, but it's just the facts.
Yes.
Yeah. And, so the question is, while some of us have made it, certainly from an economic perspective, the majority of the Caymanian people haven't really benefited from that evolution. So we talked a little bit about intergenerational responsibilities, for example. What happened there? Roy was also speaking about, when we went to school, if there was a teacher that certainly at that time, we had teachers that were Caymanians and we knew where to find the parents. The teachers could contact the parents and have a conversation about the student, how well the student is doing. That level of familiarity obviously has kind of like skittered away because of the way the community has evolved. Both Steve and Roy spoke about social responsibility. I remembered, I carried with me this morning the comment that you said your mom made about grief and that there's no grief like living grief. And so the thing is, how did we get here? Let's be real. I mean, I think some of the times people are reticent about being honest and speaking the truth because folks feel that, it's a small conservative community. And that means you put your jobs at risk and you don't want to be ostracized necessarily. But I'm not sure if there's a Moses that's going to come to save the community. So my personal view is that unless Caymanians get engaged and, make their voices heard and known, we will be at the bottom of the barrel and remain there for a while, especially the way in which our community is currently evolving from an economic perspective. And I'll also say, I'm not sure how many of us have seen Ryan Coogler's Sinners. If you haven't seen that movie, it's something worth taking a look at and looking at the way he structures it metaphorically and the role of the vampires. And that's just something to flesh out as well. And I'll just sit back and let other members take over.
Okay.
Steve, Roy.
Doc.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, they have the audacity to talk about Black History Month. Look around the England and the United States. Those are the countries that I'm familiar with. It was our blood and sweat that made them wealthy, that made them rich. They brought us from Africa. They worked us for 300 odd years for no money. They had us separated, and they had us in such a state that we were proliferating for them. They had this slavery, the servant proliferation, where we had to multiply to get more slaves. After it became so heinous that they said, this is terrible. We can't Christianity can't take this anymore. So what they did is that they had us multiplying with our sisters and our brothers in the Caribbean and in Brazil and all of those places. And in America, the foundation of the American dollar was based off all this cheap slave labor. And even people in royalty were engaged in in selling people and buying and selling people and making money off other people. They have the audacity to now to talk about the Negro month and so forth. That's the reason why I don't have much patience with those kind of people anymore. And to me, it's a great insult. And as Teresa, as Dr. Pitcairn was saying, and Dr. Roy was saying, the reason why we are more enlightened today is because we read reading, we know the history. The history, one good thing the white people did, they wrote things down. I guess they wrote it down so that they could sit back and read what they did and admire some of the things they did. That's the reason why they don't want to pay reparation today, because they said, oh well, my grandfather made all the money, but I wasn't in slavery. But they know what the history is, and so a lot of Caymanians think that they are going to get educated and to get the history from YouTube. You're not going to get it from YouTube. You got to get it from the archives. You got to get it from the source, and so that's the reason why we come on the radio, because we always go to the source to understand where we come from. We know where we come from, and we have a good idea of where we are going to.
Okay, with that, folks, we've reached the top of the hour. We're going to go to our 8 o'clock news. When we return, the conversation will continue with Doctors Teresa Pitcairn, Steve McPhail, and Roy Borden. Don't change that dial. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
And community at the grounds in Lower Valley, hosted by the Cayman Islands Agricultural Society and the Ministry of Agriculture. It's family fun with Caymanian pride and prizes to be won. Follow Cayman Agriculture on Facebook and Instagram for further details.
Craving something bold, juicy, and packed with flavor? Introducing KFC's new crispy barbecue sandwich served on a soft, buttery brioche bun. That's 100% KFC premium chicken breast, perfectly crispy, deliciously smoky with crispy onions, cheddar cheese, and barbecue sauce. Just the right amount of messy in the best way possible. Stacked with layers of bold KFC flavor, this sandwich is your new obsession. But hurry, it's only at KFC for a limited time. So what are you waiting for? Get yours today at any of the 3 KFC locations on island. KFC, finger licking good, just got bolder.
For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. For those of you who are just joining us, we have in the studio with us this morning doctors Roy Borden, Teresa Pitcairn, and Steve McPhail. Before I throw the mic over to Miss Teresa, because she's organized all of this, so she's going to be my co-host, as well as a guest this morning in terms of moderating. I'm going to throw some people may refer to it as trivia, but it's historical trivia. So, do you know where the phrase "the real McCoy" originated? It, of course, the phrase talks about, it means genuine authenticity. It means authenticity. The real McCoy. That's the real thing. The
real thing.
But where did it come from? If you find out, send us a message right here on WhatsApp 925-3261 when you do your research to tell us where the phrase "the real McCoy" came from, and we will acknowledge you right here on For the Record. Over to you, Ms. D.
Right. So, as we were discussing during the break, I'd like to invite my brother, I know he calls me his fourth sister, to speak to the whole idea of Cayman and cultural erosion, because we've shifted from a homogenous, tightly knit community, and you're seeing the sort of tensions and polarization that one expects under these circumstances. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand it over to my good friend and brother Roy.
I've been sitting here thinking of how remarkable this moment is. Remarkable because in this studio this morning, you have 4 persons who are representative of a group of people, I can even say a class of people who a half a century ago, or a little more than half a century ago, would have been written off in this society by the establishment because of the backgrounds from which we came. Not that any of us came from any kind of criminal background, but because of the blot and the significance given to skin color we would not, if odds were taken at that time, the odds would be against us and people like us being here now in these positions of influence, because we were seen, our ancestors were seen as hewers of stone, drawers of water, washing dishes, and being nannies.
And ironing clothes.
And ironing clothes. Written off by our own brother and sister Caymanians who were of a different color. And so I was remarking too, when this whole idea of a Black History Month came several years ago, man, there were people in the society ready to tear down. How dare you talk about Black history as if it was some kind of subversive idea. And so it brings me back to this observation, that the reason why we and people like us had an advantage, because now we're not so common anymore. Many young persons of color have attained education, was because we dared read and were inquisitive. Teresa's talking about all these people, Richard Wright, James Baldwin, John Williams, and all these American authors. It was a rite of passage that we went through them, and then we came down to the West Indian people. Who has never read The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, or discussed his ideas? And so we come back to 21st century Cayman. We're concerned, we the collective, Teresa, Steve, myself, Mr. Moderator, yourself, people like Dr. Frank, we're concerned because the struggle that we're in, our people really don't understand. And what has happened is that the recent comers have kind of bamboozled and manipulated and dumb us down into thinking that, hey, listen, guys, you yield your position to us. We know better. And when we try to speak up, they curse us, saying we are entitled. Well, I have permission from Teresa to say that I want to explain this, and what I'm saying is, hold me responsible and nobody else. I want to address this matter of entitlement once and for all. And for all. If you're a citizen of a country and that citizenship does not bring you certain advantages over the non-citizen, then you tell me what purpose is served in you being a citizen of that country.
Yeah.
Hey? Because I've traveled to the United States, and I'm sure all of us around this table has. In the United States, if we're not Americans, we're nobodies. You see what Trump is doing now. We're nobodies. And so if in Cayman, a Caymanian does not command a position of influence and advantage, then that citizenship is worth nothing. Now, I'm not saying that means that a Caymanian must be entitled to any position that they're not qualified for. But I'm saying no outsider dare question me about my entitlement here. I should be questioning them about their entitlement. And so I want to say that this is a great society, and it should remain a great society, but there are those of us who are prepared to articulate the ideas that we, as a people, as a Caymanian people, as generational Caymanians, are not inferior by any means to anyone else. So that's the foundation from which I would like to lay my argument. And I want to go on to say that when you reach the level of the Doc and I in terms of years, you can't help but reflect what is going to happen when we are no longer on the scene. When there's not a Doc to come on the radio and express it as it is. When there's not a Roy Borden to call it as he sees it. So we are concerned, and one of the things we would like to do is to prepare the next generation of docs and Roy Bordens, so that they understand the society in which they live. And in order to do that, we have to have some grasp of where we came from, our history, and to be proud of our family connections, and use the positions that we have. Use the position that we have to benefit the society and to break the generational curses. We were talking about that Friday evening. Yeah. My sister Teresa, Doc, and I. How can we break the generational curses? And so we see that, Mr. Moderator, as our objective, to set ourselves up as exemplars so that younger people, younger Caymanians can have pride and try to break the generational curse so that we don't have to suffer so much put down, so that we are competitive, because it's a global world in which we have to succeed, we have to be as good as or better than.
Or sometimes twice as good.
That's right. That's right. And so I'll stop there.
I was just thinking and before I hand the mic over to Steve, I was just thinking again of one of the characters in James Baldwin's Go Tell It on the Mountain. And so this is a book that's through the eyes of a 14-year-old coming of age. And it's everything. He's having a birthday and everything is happening in one day. So he's talking about his different aunts and uncles and the blended families, and talking about his relationship with his stepfather, not knowing who his father was. All of those things that we see emblematic in our community today. But one of the characters who was educated, and you see him looking at a library, and he's looking and he's thinking, oh my goodness, what would it mean if I had the ability to learn, to read more, to be 10 times smarter than folks that were white? Would he be saved then? And it turns out that, at the end of the book, this particular guy reaches the conclusion that no matter how smart you are, no matter how bright you are, no matter how many times you demonstrate that you're people's intellectual superior, in that society where you have no place to go, or where you're born into a community that doesn't give you the kind of aspiration to be someone, you may as well commit suicide, which is what this particular character did in this book. So I say that to say that education is important, but if you don't have a system which allows you to have a fair opportunity, where you're not built to fail, education, no matter how much you have, may not necessarily bring you the kind of value that you think that you ought to have. And without no further ado, I'll just pass that over to you, Steve.
Well, how can you have value if you don't have a history? And if you by chance lose your history? I was reading the other day about the different kinds of people who lived on this planet, and they're saying now that people are saying it's amazing how primitive people could build so many buildings, and now they start to figure out, but they were not so primitive at all. They probably were smarter than we are today, and some catastrophe came that took them away, and they had to start all over again. So we're the same. We came from a continent, and by the way, if you don't believe it, just read the social anthropology and geography and history and the origin of man, and even the Bible, and say it says that life began in the bowl of Africa. Well, if life began in the bowl of Africa, then we must have been the original people. We must have come from the original people. So we came over here. And we lost our way. We lost our language. We lost our tradition. And then what happened to us is that after a while we became British subjects. We were not even people. We were British subjects. What's the subject? You know, and in America, they said we were, three quarters of a man. So here we are today, and in the 21st century, the three of us here, and people like Dr. Frank and my cousin that passed, Dr. Timothy McPhail, and all of those other people. The struggle that we've had to keep our genre, our history alive, to keep our movement alive, to keep our enlightenment alive, because even the books that I remember reading when I was 15 years old, I went to Jamaica with the Jamaica Jamboree, Boy Scout Jamboree, and after the camping, myself, Warren Bernard, who's passed, and Trenvick Miller, and some other people, Harville Bird, and all of those people. We stayed at a Scoutmaster's house in Kingston. I think the gentleman was a sanitary inspector for Western Kingston, and I picked up this book. I have never read a book like that before. It was a book that said Marcus Garvey Speaks, and I got immersed in the books where everybody was going out to Stony Hill. I said I didn't want to go to Stony Hill. I wanted to stay and read this book. And when I came back with the book, I was reading it, and then I started to read and figure out when he said that I am somebody, and I came from royalty too, and that I should be proud of my ancestry and so forth. And I remember discussing that with my own family, and the rebuke I got from them. I remember telling my family one time. I says, Jesus had to be black, but if he came from Africa, and they were saying that's blasphemy. You should not be saying that, son. And they push you down, and then I was reading the other day, that is part of what that is part of the suffering that you that you have to go through to be able to keep your ethnicity and to be proud of your ethnicity, because and especially if God gave you any gifts, they will ridicule you, they will put you down, and so forth. And unfortunately, we have always stood for what we believe. So here we are today in our own country where we are sort of dumbed down. We have allowed people to pull us down into this poverty that so many of us. And then I started to look around the other day, and I was thinking to myself, at one time, before we came into the 21st century, we all had our homes. We all had our plantations mostly. We all lived well. We didn't have any mortgage with the banks. We didn't have to borrow money, and we had police force with probably 9 people. Maybe one murder every 30 years, and so forth. And we were such happy people on this land where we grew up and respected one another. And all of a sudden, people come and say, but you can't do that because you are the lesser of all the peoples in the country. And then when we try to fight back, I don't mean physically. I mean when we try to say no, our civilization is just as important as your civilization. They put us down, and here we are now trying to revive our life story and trying to tell the story of our people. To me, it's an amazing feat. Perhaps what we're going through today in Cayman is one of the greatest story ever told. And I wish that someday that we would be able to just sit down and tell the story without any repercussions on our jobs, our economic systems, or for our children and everything, because that would actually free us. That would be what Bob Marley and Marcus Garvey say. We would then be free
From mental slavery.
From mental slavery.
Okay, with that, I'm going to just leave you with this quote, one of Maya Angelou's most famous lines: "Do the best you can until you know better. Then, when you know better, do better." With that, we're going to take a commercial break. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly.
The Record.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. For those of you who are just joining us, this is a special show this morning with doctors Roy Borden, Theresa Pitcairn, and Steve MacPhail during Black History Month, the month of February. I haven't received any responses in relation to the phrase "the real McCoy," and let me share it with you. The phrase "the real McCoy" has come to mean authenticity. Few realize that it points to Elijah McCoy, a pioneering Black Canadian inventor whose engineering brilliance helped power the steam age. So, one of our listeners also said, well said, Dr. Steve MacPhail, on your last comments as well. Over to you, Ms. T.
Right. So we wanted to kind of like thread what Steve was saying into the conversation that I'm going to invite Roy to actually pick up on. And this actually touches on his particular experience as a politician. Mm-hmm. So our population is diverse and our politics is conservative. And Steve spoke to the whole notion of the cultural silence that we have. I touched a little bit on Ryan Coogler's note in Sinners. What I should have said as well, in as much as the vampires are a sort of a metaphor for predatory forces that, act as agents for institutional racism, because I was also thinking of how vampires are hidden and they operate at night, much like the Ku Klux Klan. And I think, and this is only my view, having watched Sinners a couple of times now, it highlights racism and how it's often hidden and its danger because it becomes institutional racism. You call it something else, and so people will give you an excuse saying, well, it's you personally. That's the reason why you can't get this job. They're not speaking. I should say, because another thought came to mind. My daughter was here a few weeks ago about dealing with her movie, and someone interviewed her and essentially said to her, well, this movie isn't going to be anything, and it's nothing more than some cultural issue based on the Cayman Islands. So Jazz now is accustomed to the no's and the naysayers and so on. She gets that all the time. So I was actually surprised when she came home with it, and the three of us, she and her siblings, we were sitting down, we were having a conversation about it. So I said, well, Jazz, how did that make you feel? So she said, well, that's their view. I'm now accustomed to the way in which our community, certain persons from our community behave, but that's not a reflection of the entire community, because, that's kind of like how she sees it. But she says, Mom, remember, we come from a generation of strong women. So she then took over and she says, this is why this movie is so important, because it speaks to the role and importance of having strong women in our community. And I'd like to showcase that on the wider screen. And then she made the comment, kind of like with a side. I said, well, much like you, Mom, I don't pay that foolishness any mind, because I know where I'm going. I know what I want to do. And I think I know what the Caymanian people would like to see. And this is about a whole cultural explosion. So even when you have folks who come here and they have made it, and they seek to assume that they can dictate what is going to be representative of the Caymanian people, or what's a failure and what's not a failure. And the particular person didn't even have a first degree, but was in a position. So David said, my son said to Jazz, well, did she know that you're at Cambridge? And it was just one of those things. But it speaks to that whole issue that Steve was speaking of with the role of cultural silence and what Roy speaks of in terms of entitlement. And what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, Roy, is to speak to how our level of conservatism in our political realm, how that has impacted where we are today.
Yeah, you see, I'd like to begin by saying I am most interested in what is happening now in terms of addressing our shortcomings on the labor and immigration fronts. And I was scanning the comments of one of the online media sites a few days ago and was absolutely astounded at some of the contributions of these anonymous contributors who have absolutely no respect for Cayman and Caymanians. And their comments could only come from bigoted, racist, colonialists who have no respect for the people of the society in which they live. I mean, an absolute put down. And I cringe to think that these are the people who are aspiring to seats in our parliament one of these days. And believe you me, as fair-minded as I am, I cannot be but Scrooge-like in depriving them of any opportunity in the near future to have such a privilege. One of the things I think that handcuffs our political representatives is that they don't think of themselves, comparatively speaking, as able in terms of the people from outside. And so it comes to what Harold Cruz talks about in his book, The Crisis of the Negro Intellectual, where we are content with outsiders setting our agenda. And we continue to be bamboozled by saying, well, those are the people with the money, if they take their money and
Yes.
go, what's going to happen to us? Well, in the first place, they're not going to take the money and go, because there are not too many places in the world that is going to give them the warm and open reception that we're giving them. And because they have money doesn't mean that we should make them lord it over us on every occasion. So what I would love to see in Cayman among us generational Caymanians, which has been the mission of those of us around this table, is to have some kind of higher self-esteem, belief in ourselves. I mean, I see people unlettered, people who are unlettered lecturing people who are lettered. And so one of the weaknesses I see in our society is that we let money and money people dictate the terms and pay absolutely no credence to those people who are trained and educated in it. And the fault I have is that politicians too quickly surrender their places of authority and are subservient, walking behind the moneyed people. And I hear the comments. I hear the comments, how they treat our elected representatives in contempt.
Yes. You hear it all the time.
And so that's one of the things that I want to see our elected representatives play a more assertive role. And a lot of people don't like me, and I realize that. I'm a writer, and they don't read my books because they know that I write about them. I don't really care. I tell my family, I'm a kind of peculiar writer, maybe even narcissistic. I enjoy my own writing.
Yes.
With that, we're going to take a commercial break. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Honor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. To our panelists, one of our listeners has written and said, the reality is that wherever racism or colorism is rooted in the psyche of the people, we will have sad and distressing examples, such as the instance of a local man with a Scottish surname taking a train ride to Scotland to look for his ancestors rather than traveling to Africa for the same purpose.
Yep. Yep. That speaks volume.
Yes, that speaks volume. We have a caller, Miss Susan, you said? We have two callers, I believe. First caller on our landline caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Sophie. Good morning, Dr. Roy and Miss Teresa Pickering. Happy New Year. I didn't get to you guys. Your topic is very, very encouraging, everything. And for Dr. Roy, I hope that they got a hero plaque for you now while you live.
No, I don't want.
They got heroes. Heroes don't die. Heroes live, right? I mean, that's my opinion, So if you're a hero, I mean, you're giving us a lot of education there. And that last comment that you're talking about, the dollar, that's our ruination. We have allowed the foreigners to come in here because Miss Consuelo would say that almighty U.S. dollar is not even a Cayman dollar. It's a U.S. dollar that we chase behind, not even a Cayman dollar that has more value than their dollar. We are making them dictate to us how our country is supposed to be. They couldn't dictate their own country how to fix theirs, but they can come and tell us how we got to run ours. And we are so vulnerable. I heard two people talking at the hospital, a doctor and a security officer, and they were talking about getting Cayman permanent residents. And you know what their words was? The doctor told, I'm not going to call her names, the doctor told the girl to say, it's easy to get. He said Caymanians are a bunch of gullible people, and all you got to do is come up with a couple of dollars, and you can buy them out. So it said, I mean, that's how they feel about us. So imagine that's how, and that they're just small ones. Imagine the ones that so-called got money here, how they take us for idiots. And we all play the role as slave masters, and we just follow the track. So we need to wake up out of our dream that we've been in for the last 40 years. I'll give it, maybe more, and realize that we are only destroying Caymanians. We're not destroying nobody else but Caymanians through that almighty dollar. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you very much, caller. We have another caller, Miss Susan, on a WhatsApp caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, WhatsApp caller. No one there? Okay. If anyone wants to respond to our last caller, and at the same time, this listener has written and said, do the panelists think that the new Immigration Act does enough to address the issues that we are discussing here?
Well, I have to be so careful about it because I work for the immigration. In a way, I work for the cabinet. I'm the chairman of the Immigration Appeals Tribunal. We hear cases every Thursday in the cabinet office, and so I have to be very careful about it. But one of the things that, one of the things that bothers me is the difficulty that we still seems to have in getting rid of undesirable people from our society. It takes such a long time, and there's so many different levels of protection that they have in Cayman versus what they have in Canada and other United Kingdom and United States and other places. That's one of the things that bothered me, and it seems to me that the government didn't follow what the people were saying in the public. As far as the new act is concerned, it doesn't come into effect until March, so I'll have to wait until when it comes into effect to see how it works, how workable it is, and then I will be able to come back and tell you what I think about it. But carrying on from the conversation that we had before, it seems to me that the people that we select to protect us wants us to sacrifice our comfort of comfort to accommodate other people, and that has been a way of life. That has been a term of endearment for most politicians in Cayman, as far as I know, and that is because there seems to be among the political class in our country a lack of academic vigor. And I have to admit that Cayman is a physical society. It has always been a physical society. It's not a bookish society. There were not too many houses when I was growing up that had a library that had books in it. To be a man, you had to drink a lot of alcohol, be strong, have great muscles, be able to go to Mosquito Key and row the boats and get on the ships and so forth. And then women would want you, and you were very virile and so forth. We never respected education. We never respected scholarships. And I'm not talking about the scholarship where you get some money to go away to go to a university or go to a college. I mean scholarship where you do research and you go to you do research and you write papers and you do sacrifice and you sacrifice your soul to know the truth about things. We were never that kind of society, and as a result, I find that a lot of people that we select to protect us, when you versus those people who come from the other countries to be able to make money off us again, not like chattel slavery, but now another kind of slavery, a colonial kind of slavery, economic slavery. They're all birds. They're all two wings of the same predator bird. That's what I believe. They're all two wings of the same predator bird, and therefore that is one of the reasons why we are so afraid to be ourselves, to call people out, and to say, "Hell no, we're not going to take this anymore," because we are scared to do what we have always been done, and what we came from hard work and sacrifice. They got us to the point now where they have suppressed our organs of our organs of senses. They have taken away from us, and so those of us who try to hold on, we are the outlaws. We are the villains. We are the ones like the sheep herders, and when the cattlemen comes to the Wild West, they want the lands for the cattle, and not for the sheep, and not for the goats. And therefore, I wonder, as Dr. Roy said before, who is going to protect us? Who is going to protect the way that we had? Who's going to protect our ethnicity? Who's going to protect our history? Who's going to protect our way of life? what I have seen and what I read in the weekends and the newspapers and the media about all the killings and the masking and the robberies and the shootings and stuff, it doesn't look a good picture to me. It doesn't paint a pretty picture to me, and therefore that's why I'm so pessimistic
Right.
about black people in Cayman and what's going to happen to them in the future.
So I'd actually expand that, if I might, to not limited to black folks in Cayman or people of color. Although if one were to look at our genealogy, you may say that, we don't have white folks that are Caymanian, but that's a story for another day. As you rightly say, Dr. Steve, to quote Malcolm Gladwell, we're outliers in terms of how we relate to our community. But I think that that's because when challenged, we never sat back and accepted. We responded. I think that's what we share as the three of us, and OC to you as well. Mm-hmm. Whereas most Caymanians tend to accept and internalize it precisely because of what Steve has said, in that we feel we're inferior and we're not as good as. So we tend, and it appears as though we choose leadership that represents these insecurities as well. I've heard folks say to me that, they've been in rooms where there are people that write speeches for some of our leaders, and it's clear that the leaders themselves don't understand some of the quotations that's in those things, because if they were aware of it, they would have excluded it in this particular speech that they're delivering. But when we choose, and this is something that I wrestle with as well, because we speak of the immigration law, but when we look around, we have to make some practical decisions. For example, we know that in the workplace, it's usually populated by persons who are not necessarily Caymanians, or they're new Caymanians, and their interests appear to lie with persons like them, or people who were educated like them, and so on. So that then puts Caymanians from the very beginning in an awkward place, because they're being asked to compete with folks who are not necessarily socialized like them, even though we may have went to the same schools and so on. And I see that the time is of the essence. So I'll just leave us right there, and probably pick up on that later, and I'll pass it over to you, Roy.
Certainly. And I will segue into that. You heard Mr. Borden talk about the Willie Lynch letter and the making of a slave. That speech was delivered in 1712. I'm going to share an excerpt from that, because he distinctly lays out there how you treat the slave, how you treat the black man, how you play them against each other and everything. Folks, please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. For those of you who are just joining us, we have doctors Steve McField, Theresa Pitcairn, and Roy Borden in the studio with us. We have several callers, three callers. But before we go to the callers, you heard Mr. Roy Borden speak earlier about the Willie Lynch letter and the making of a slave. And the speech was given in 1712. And I just want to share this with you. So Willie Lynch said, "I have outlined a number of differences amongst the slaves, and I take these differences and make them bigger. I use fear, distrust, and envy for control purposes." This is what he uses against the slaves. "These methods have worked on my modest plantation in the West Indies, and it will work throughout the South. Take this simple little list of differences and think about them. On top of my list is age, but it is only there because it starts with A. The second is color or shade. There is intelligence, size, sex, size of plantations, status on plantations, attitude of owners, whether the slaves live in the valley or on a hill, east, west, north, south, have fine hair or coarse hair, or is tall or short. Now that you have a list of differences, I shall give you an outline of action. But before that, I shall assure you that distrust is stronger than trust, and envy is stronger than adulation, respect, or admiration. The black slave, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe even thousands. And folks, there are many of us who believe that we are still suffering from that. And that was outlined in 1712. We have 3 callers. Let's take the callers. We're going to ask each caller to please be as brief as possible. First caller on the landline. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, O.C.
Good morning. Good morning.
And good morning to your distinguished guests.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, I just I felt compelled to call this morning because I noticed recently where the ministers, to your topic about Caymanians and why we are positioned the way we are. A prime example of that is I saw a recent headline where we had some of the ministers did an opening for a restaurant, a Scottish
fish and chips. Fish and chips, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fish and chips. Nothing against the restaurant, nothing against the owners. I wish them all the success with their business. And nothing personal against the ministers. But we have our elected ministers opening a fish and chips joint when we have local Caymanian restaurants opening all the time, serving traditional Caymanian dishes. And I don't see any ministers there doing any ribbon cutting for those. But yet, in the front page of the headlines, here are our elected officials doing a ribbon cutting for a Scottish fish fry or fish and chips. I mean, that speaks volumes about the direction and what they support and what the things that they're trying to promote. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see them by the hotels. Oh, these are our stakeholders. All the hotels are their stakeholders. What about the people that actually work on the ground in tourism? The Caymanians, if I should say so. They are the true stakeholders, not the hotels. The hotels don't care about us or Cayman. They only here for one reason. And we know what that is. But we have local restaurants open up who are inviting the ministers to their restaurants that are serving Caymanian food in a Caymanian setting and trying to promote things that are Caymanian. And we don't see the ministers anywhere in sight. And again, nothing personal against them. I love them. I love them. Nothing against them personally. But come on. This goes back to what Mr. Roy Borden, Miss Teresa, and Dr. Steve were talking about. This is why we can't get nowhere. And that's why Dr. Steve is feeling pessimistic. And I don't blame him. Because if we have elected officials that are supporting everything besides Caymanians, how are we to get anywhere as a nation?
Mm-hmm. Caller, I want to thank you. Thank you very much for that. We want to accommodate as many callers as we can. Let's go to the next caller. Caller, good morning. And we will give our panelists an opportunity to respond to that caller as well. Next caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Oath. Good morning to your panel.
Good morning. Good morning.
There's something that really upset me over the weekend. That was the case where someone in somewhere down in Mary Street, and the person died.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, some guy giving himself to the police station. The news is stating some whatever his name is from West Bay or a West End. I am so tired of hearing this thing about a West Bay resident. Why in hell name can they not say, well, his name is Tom Jones and his nationality is this, but just everything is about West Bay, West Bay. That's all they can say. Even the commissioner of police, when they had something up at the Bush, the commissioner got up and said, I think he said it was 36, shall I say, hardcore criminals. Something like 30 was Caymanians, and the other 6 or 7 is from other jurisdictions. I got up and asked him, I said, you say where these Caymanians are from? Now come out the balls, tell us where the other 6 are from or were from. He relaxed and said they're from Jamaica and maybe this. Come on. Cayman is especially West Bay. We have 4 representatives. This is your district. Have the decency or the respect to the district that elected you to say, no, this is not good enough. Wherever the crime is, the person is from, you need to come forward and say where they're from. This is what's happening. Anybody can bat us up and down, round and round, and we don't have the representation or the interest to say, no, you get this story straight. All of this Cayman compass and all that about West Bay, and more West Bay. Trying to see what may happen, just trying to absolutely give West Bay more black eyes than what we deserve. And I'm not trying to say that we don't have some crime here. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying call a spade a spade. Come forward and tell us the truth. So, gentlemen, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for taking my little call.
Thank you very much. And just to say here, the police report says a 42-year-old man who resides in West Bay turned himself over to police at the Cayman Islands Detention Center that evening as well. Let's grab the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning.
Happy good morning to you and to your distinguished guests, Dr. Pikirin,
Good morning.
Dr. Roy, and the iconic Dr. McFeel.
Good morning.
I will identify myself because I have no issues in identifying myself as a generational Caymanian. My name is Richard Bernard, Senior. Mr. Borden, I read your book, Deconstructing Development, and it's so spot on as to what is happening and how we have dropped the ball simply by putting people who does not really have our interests or our best interests at heart. And I dare say that we are no longer at the crossroads. We have crossed those crossroads because we have allowed ourselves to be misguided. But I am enlightened that we have the 3 of you generational Caymanians to help lead some of us, at least those that will listen, because we don't have a lot of people that are even persuaded by the masterminds like you are, but those of us like myself that hold you to high esteem. I do appreciate anytime you have something to say, because whatever comes out of your mouth are words of wisdom. So I will now conclude and hang up and listen to the rest of what you have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much, caller, for that. We're going to take a commercial break. Any other callers on hold? Ms. Susan, no callers on hold. Let's put those calls on hold for a moment so that our panelists can respond as well. Folks, please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Your dream home starts with a vision, and often inspiration is at the heart of that vision. Brand Source Home Gallery's in-house designers are here to help bring your vision to life. Whether you're remodeling or building a new home, Brand Source Home Gallery is your one-stop solution. Explore their kitchen cabinets, sinks, faucets, bath fixtures, tubs, vanities, and more. Let Brand Source's designers help and inspire you with your next project. Call 623-5000 and schedule an appointment with a design expert at Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park, serving Cayman for 50 years.
Did you know that Doctors Hospital provides urgent care services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? And Doctors Hospital's urgent care physicians have access to the most advanced MRI and CT imaging in the Caribbean, providing reliable diagnostics when you need it most. When you need quality urgent care for an illness or injury, Doctors Hospital is here for you 24/7. Whether it's a migraine, chest or abdominal pain, shortness of breath, broken bones, or another urgent need, Doctors Hospital at the top of Walker's Road. Urgent care right now.
She hear clunk and her car stop. I was just about to send her some money, so I send it straight to her JN money transfer card. It cost me less, and perhaps she use the card, pay the garage right away. She'll get discount through the JN Rewards program in Jamaica. This card make things easy. You can even get funds at any multi-link ATM.
JN Money Transfer Card. Fast, affordable, convenient. Tell your loved ones in Jamaica about it. Sign up is free.
For the Record with Ort Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, Doctors Roy Borden, Theresa Pitcairn, and Steve MacPhail. In the month of February, Black History Month being celebrated, and we have Miss Theresa has arranged this discussion, this panel this morning. It was something needed to come a long time ago. Couldn't get it, on the agenda. We finally have. Miss T, over to you.
So I was just threading the thoughts that were shared in the conversations just now, and I was sharing during the break that we're looking for some type of systemic community resilience. And the point that one of the gentlemen made was about politicians being involved with opening a Scottish fish, and he wasn't being negative or anything. He was just calling it as it is. Mm-hmm. And so I said to the team, well, this is nothing new. We chose who we chose, and we know that it doesn't change the average situation for the Caymanian people. So as I said at the beginning of the conversation, there are some people who have managed to gain some success, and there are others, and I think for the majority of Caymanians, based on what I see today, I am leaning towards Steve's level of pessimism. I don't want to necessarily stay as and I tell you what and again, James Baldwin, he says it doesn't make sense to be pessimistic, as a matter of fact, because he says, one, you're alive. If you're alive, you can do something about it. So that's kind of like his position. But when you think about where we are today, and Caymanians are aware that nothing has really changed, right? And how do we make certain priorities so that we extricate the Caymanian people by informing them? I mean, because, and I have to be really careful with how I share these thoughts, but if you don't know and if you don't understand, we have to make it a priority to ensure our people know and understand. It's not unlike what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore. He had to make education a priority, and education, understanding the population, but the Caymanian people must have that willingness as well. They must want to also extricate themselves from the situation. Now, we can't just always be sitting on the porch complaining and expect a Moses to come in. And it's some of the times why I am perplexed when we say things like, God take the wheel, because it presupposes again that someone else, some other, is going to take care of the responsibilities that we have for ourselves. So I don't know how Roy and Steve feel about that, but, I'm throwing those thoughts out there.
Well, I want to talk about the elephant in the room, because that should be an obvious sight. And I want to preface what I'm saying with the doc say he's pessimistic. I've been pessimistic. And it shows. What I'm concerned about is that there is a necessity for a Moses, man, an honest broker, someone who is capable of uplifting our people. And it cannot come from the political class, because they are not in a position, they are not in a neutral position to deliver what has to be delivered. We need someone who has a genuine skin in the game, who has what in the heyday of the Black Power movement, what the Black Panthers talk about, soul in the system to uplift our people. Let me tell you how I see it. All of these crimes are being perpetrated by people who are ill-equipped. They're crying out for the society because they're left behind. We are preying upon each other. Not that there should be any crime. No one should be preying on anyone. But look at 4 o'clock in the morning. What are these people doing out? A gang of people. What are they doing out? And so we're mesmerized. So we have all these women from outside the culture of the region, entertainment, a distraction. And that's a palliative to some of the people who look for liquor, sex, and all that kind of stuff. And you're telling me, I want to say this without fear of successful contribution. Whoever believes that there's not prostitution in this society are naive. They're like blind Bartimaeus. I mean, it's everywhere. Nothing is being done about it. Nothing is being done to mentally uplift our people. It's as if a certain element should be written off. I am telling you that I cannot feel good as a society that touts itself in the 21st century as a prosperous country, seeing what I'm seeing. The family is at risk. That's what I say in my book. We need to be educating fathers to be responsible. We need to be inculcating young men. We need role models for young men that they can gravitate towards, and young women too. Instead, we're on I read the stories, man. We're only focusing on, well, this Bitcoin, this tax break, this beneficial ownership. Ultimately, the society is going to be judged on the mental health, the social cohesion, the economic prosperity, and the feelings people have of optimism or pessimism in the society. And I'm telling you, we're measuring our progress on a faulty report card. And it cannot last. The National Assessment of Living Conditions, read that. I wonder how many people read that. These people said the conclusion, they said the society is beginning to fray at its edges. But I see no genuine attempt. Why is it that we couldn't follow the Singaporean model? Why is it that we don't have a group of eminent persons who can be unofficial advisors? Why is it that the politicians don't have proper political advisors who understand the sociology of the society advising them?
Goes back to OC's point, though, when we were talking about the Willie Lynch letters and, how Caymanians observe their own people. And it's kind of sad in that, they have the resources available, but they choose to have this otherness in terms of, who they choose to get advice from.
Okay, and this question from one of our listeners ties right into that, Ms. T. It says here, good morning, Mr. OC and your distinguished panel. I was wondering if any time throughout our history that early Caymanians felt the same way, being outnumbered by new immigrants. If there's any other time in our history that we felt this way.
No, we didn't. There was no time in our history that we were outnumbered. But believe me, there was a time in our history when we felt that we were neglected and that we were put down, the same as we are now. Remember, 1831 in the 17th, 19th century, when the governor of Jamaica was supposed to be the governor of Cayman, when there was no, remember, at the time there was no constitutional or political connection between the two countries. Cayman was sort of drifting there, and then people start to come. The Cubans start to come. They came off the fort. The shell came on. They started doing things and came on that they although that was during slavery times, and they were freedmen as well. And what did the Caymanian people do? They sat down and they drafted a letter to the governor area, and they sent it by Stephen Watler Borden, and they sent it to Jamaica. They took the boat to Black River, where they got destroyed the other day, and they took the carriage up to San Diego de la Vega to the Spanish town, and they asked for four things. They asked to form a militia, form an army to protect Cayman. They asked to give them the power to raise taxes. They asked for new magistrates, and they asked to enhance the power of the petty court. It was not called summary court; it was called a petty court to give judgments. But the governor said, I can't do that. I can give you a few more justice of the peace, but I can't magistrates, but I can't give you all those powers. And they came back. They met on the 5th of December, 1831, and they decided to form their own government. And on the 10th of December, they had the elections at Pedro St. James. The only two districts that were not represented was East End and North Side. But Borden Town, Southwest Sound, which is South Sound, Prospect, Georgetown, and West Bay all had representatives. They had two houses of parliament, upper house and lower house. And we ran this country, Caymanians ran this country from 1831 until 1863.
Exactly.
When the British government stepped in
Right.
and passed the Caymanian Act.
Yes.
And then what they had to do to save the people from being hung, as they said in America, we either hung together or we hung separately.
That's right.
Yeah.
They had to ratify everything that we had done between all of those years. And we ran this country. And they gave Jamaica the power to make law for the peace, order, and good governance of Cayman.
Yep.
But what did we do? Did we capitulate it? We didn't capitulate.
Nope.
We still went our own way. And three things we said that we wanted to do. To always maintain. To have the right to raise taxes. To have the right to say who come here, who go, and have the right to to say who can work in Cayman. That continued until 1962, when we left the whole colonial system in the Caribbean and became a crown colony. So, if we could do that then if we had politicians could do that then,
exactly.
Why can't we do that today?
And going on from there, in terms of answering the writer's question, the Caymanian Protection Law of 1971,
That's right.
was designed again to and helped
exactly
not to put us in the position that we're in. And then it started to denigrate after that. We have to go to a commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned. For the Record, we'll be back shortly.
Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, doctors Steve Markfield, Teresa Pickern and Roy Borden. One of our listeners has written and said, good morning. Great show this morning. The caller that just mentioned the opening of the Fish and Chips restaurant is, like most of us, finding it hard to accept that so many of these quote-unquote foreigners are now Caymanian. Apparently, he has lived here for over 20 years, probably has Cayman status by now. It pains my heart to hear them calling themselves Caymanian. The time has come for them to be called something else, and it is not wrong for us to think that way. Upon arrival at the airport, the Caymanian line is so long. That shows us how fast we are being outnumbered. I believe we have a caller as well, Miss Susan. Let's take the caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning to you, OC.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, OC.
Good morning.
And good morning to your guests.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have one question.
You're coming in, breaking up, and you're getting a delay. You need to turn your radio down.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, caller.
I got one question for your guest, OC, and then I'm gonna hang up.
Okay.
And I gotta wait for the answer. To your guest, I need you to tell me who is responsible for what is happening in this country. All right? I'll hang up. I have the answer, but I'll hang up. I just want to hear your opinion on exactly who is responsible for what is happening in this country. Thank you, and have a good morning.
Thank you very much, caller. You do the same as well. So we have that question, and we have the comment in relation to the fact that they feel that those persons who obtain Caymanian status should be called something else, and how the long lines at or immigration, the Caymanian line is indicative, of how we're being outnumbered.
So I can't speak, obviously, for Roy and for Steve, but I think, charity begins at home. So when we sit down and say nothing and do nothing, what is the expectation? And I'll pass it over to you, Steve.
Well, the fundamental question that he just asked is that I would say all the administrations since 1976 are responsible for what happened. And it seems to me that one of the fundamental changes happened between 1976 and 1984. And I think if Dr. Borden would agree with me, that is when we actually break into the 21st century between 1976 and 1984, when the backs of the merchant class got broken, the political power of the merchant class got broken, and then the people who took over, we thought that they were going to do better than what the merchant class did, but they did worse, and they opened up Cayman for everyone, even though there were a lot of us who were saying Cayman is not for everyone, Cayman is not for everybody, and they said, no. Cayman is for everybody. As long as you bring the money in the suitcases, you can buy us. You can buy Cayman, and that is when Cayman went the other side.
But Steve, and again, I have to bring it back home to us, because we sat back, we said nothing, we did nothing. What is the expectation? It's almost like when you listen to folks talk about President Trump, and the way in which he is now managing the United States. Folks can't say that they didn't know who he was before, so I don't know what the expectation was. But for me, unless and until Caymanians have the courage, and I keep coming back to that word all the time, to get off that safe spot and don't expect that there's going to, Roy spoke of a Moses. I'm not necessarily thinking of a Moses. I'm thinking of the Caymanian people having a willingness to do something for themselves and not go around having this expectation that someone else is going to do this for them.
Well,
Sorry, Roy.
This person, again, right down the lines that you're talking about, says Dr. Steve and others who are pessimistic about any radical positive change taking place in the near future have good grounds for their pessimism, understanding that changing people's behavior is near to impossible, but changing their thinking is exponentially harder. But like Wilberforce, we keep pushing forward. Mr. Bud.
Well, I agree with Doc. It's a collective responsibility, and it happened as he said it would. It seems to me, now that the chickens are coming home to roost, that we have sacrificed our long-term objectives, which should have been placing ourselves in a position where our people had the first bite of the cherry. We sacrificed our long-term objectives for the short-term promise of a false success. And we gave in to the moneyed people, the carpetbaggers. And now we've lost it, and we can't get it back. We cannot get it back except we fortify our people, bring them up to where they understand the struggle they're up against, and where our leaders have the testicular fortitude to claw it back bit by bit by bit. And so it'll take a generation or more for us to get to the point where generational Caymanians, if there are any left at that time, will come to feel that they have real worth in the society. But I say that, the Moses has to come soon, because if he doesn't come soon,
or her,
yeah, of course.
The thing is, though, you've got to start somewhere, which is why I went back to Baldwin and said, I'm alive, so you can do something, right? But we can't do anything if Caymanians continue with the posture where they sit back, they're on the porch, they're complaining, and not having a look at the way in which so many other people come here. They pool their resources together and they're building so many businesses. Caymanians continue to be that crab in the barrel, and I'm just calling it as it is, where we actually say we're in the business of being negative towards each other. And I mean, to the point that Willie Lynch made, disclosed in that letter, we have to find a way to extricate ourselves from that, right? So, go on.
There is one last frontier that we have, and we're going to lose that. That is the ability that generational Caymanians have to sit in the parliament.
Oh, yeah.
When we lose that.
That is it. That is it.
Yeah.
Well, my question would be, do we have any examples in modern times or even history where, other than by conquest, military conquest, you have the potential for population of people, indigenous people, to be decimated simply by their own actions or inaction in terms of allowing us to be overrun and not controlling who comes, who stays, how long they stay, who acquires citizenship or not. And my point on that is, unless and until we are no longer a British Overseas Territory citizen, our country, or British Overseas Territory, that will never happen, because we are always subservient to others, at least from a legal and constitutional standpoint.
Well, that speaks to the courage that I'm speaking. I didn't go there, but that speaks to the kind of courage that it's going to take. You spoke of other communities. Dubai came to mind in terms of, having a smaller population and having to import people to have to do, to perform certain responsibilities.
Fiji?
Yeah.
But the military took care of that.
Yes.
But
they made sure that didn't happen.
let us not forget too, in all of these societies in Dubai, the citizens of Dubai are in control of the land of Dubai.
Yeah. That's the other thing we talked about during the break in terms of, people pooling resources, buying the land and so on. And again, unless you're going to invite, people who are thinking about these things, Anyway.
Okay, let's take our last commercial break. I believe we do have a caller as well, Ms. Susan. We will take that caller. That will be the last caller as soon as we return. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly.
Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Before we go to our caller, one of our listeners has sort of like chimed in on the question about immigration. This person says that the Immigration Act will not achieve the demands of the people as virtually everybody has been grandfathered in. B, many of the things that need to be done, example, work preferences for Caymanians, do not need legislation, but resolute policies and practices. C, there is a lack of ideological direction from leaders, as Dr. Roy points out in his recent book. Let's grab the caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, O.C.
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, morning to my three favorite Caymanians there.
Morning.
This Elvis McKeever. I'm reporting on behalf of CBNN. That is Cayman Black Nigger News. Right. Yeah, CBNN. Raw, real, and relevant. So, now we talking about our history month. Well, Mr. Risa, I was talking about you this morning, Father. I know you and my grandmother is relative because she was the Anderson too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard Larissa and them say that, yeah.
Yeah, Grace Anderson.
Yeah.
So, now we want to find out, the gentleman asked, why we in this position today? Caymanians put us right where we are. Because we got to the position now thinking that we don't need each other, which is a lie. We all need money, but we need each other. Now, when we will never get out of the position that we are in until you get leaders like me that calls a spade, because when you get elected members that we just went through a referendum and 10,385 people voted for decriminalizing of marijuana, and now it's been almost a year, and you got push it down a year longer about law reform commission, then you got come in consultation or whatever. That is blatant disrespect for the people that elected you. And I am telling the Premier, and I told him, listen, the Premier only got 300 more votes than me now. I don't think he got that much. I got 107 votes. And I campaigned for ganja, farming, and teachers, and liberty for my people. So, when you neglect that voting block of people, partner, the world is looking at us. Well, if the politician can do them that, we can do them anything. Lord help us all and have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you very much, caller. I'll give you all an opportunity to respond, and I'll just include this one in it. This person says, good morning. We can't forget or ignore the fact that blood is thicker than water. We have Caymanians that still belong to their foreign nationalities, still put those first. It's very easy to hear and see where their hearts belong. Thank you. They are very loyal to their parents' nationalities. Okay, Ms. T, 10 minutes left, and yes, you can direct the rest of it. No, and tell us when, where the next discussion that we have, where it will take us.
I will ping you on that. Mm-hmm. But I'll just borrow a quote that Roy shared with us in making my final statement. And I revert to the whole thing about Caymanians having that choice. Until this is Chinua Achebe, things fall apart. Until the lions have their historians, tales of the hunt shall always glorify the hunter. Mm-hmm. So what Achebe said was, until the lions have their historians, tales of the hunt shall always glorify the hunter. And that's a metaphorical way of describing how dominant groups inscribe power through historical narrative. And for me, reading was what I had a curiosity about reading, and that in my mind was my path to dignity. It really, really, really was. And I'd like to share that with the Caymanian community. You know, we have to become a more literate community. And I'm not sure what that's going to take, but we have to start somewhere. And that's my call. And I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Roy and Dr. Steve and then to OC.
Well, I will give the iconic Dr. McField the final say, so I'll chime in here. One of the most telling things that I have discovered during my years of political campaign is the absence of any kind of books in a majority of the Caymanians' home. Now, I grew up as a poor boy with a hard, struggling mother. But my mother made sure there was ample, adequate, sensible reading material. And I from the beginning, I had a thirst for knowledge. And Teresa talked about all the authors, all the black authors. I went through that. I went through most books of the Western canon. That's how I developed my ideas, so that by the time I went to university and had a liberal education, I understood what I had to do. I have an obligation. I have a love for this Caymanian society and a love for its people. I could have expatriated myself. I could have stayed in Canada and had the good life. But I came back here because I wanted to make a contribution. And I, like the doc and many other people, got vilified. And I'm in my 8th decade now. God grant me the privilege to continue, because my message will be the same. And I'm the kind of evangelist, if there is one in my congregation, I will preach. And if there's 1,000, I'll preach the same message.
Oh.
Well, we, Mr. For the record, have allowed our people to actually fall down into the same trap that slavery brought us. The trap of poverty, cruelty, indifference. And what I see now is everybody is in the same boat. I wrote a piece many years ago for one of the media houses here, saying we're all in the same boat and we all have to paddle to save our canoe from going ashore. And the feedback I got from some of those people who are not Caymanians saying, I'm not in the same boat with him, I'm not in the same boat with you. And I stopped writing. We also have to make fundamental strategic population adjustments if we are to continue to achieve and maintain this tremendous little society that we built over the many years. Remember, we're one of the only societies that we built on our own without any help from outside. We never got any money from Great Britain.
Right.
They never gave us anything. Everything that they loaned us, we had to pay it back. I think the last thing they loaned us was money to do the airport.
That's right.
In 1952, and we had to pay them back that money. But what we have today now is that we have other people who have come here, and unfortunately, we've had some of the weakest people representing us over the years. I wouldn't say today, but over the years, we have some of the weakest people who represent us over the years. And that growth that we had, that pride that we had, the pride to be a Caymanian. I remember stepping off, going on a ferry from Norfolk, Virginia to Baltimore before the Chesapeake Bridge was built. You had to get on the bus, go onto the ferry. I'm taking the bus from Miami to New York, and standing by the window to get food, and they pull the window down, close the window, and I'm standing by myself, and I'm wondering, why am I standing here by myself? And a guy came over and says, "You're the damn wrong side of the ferry, boy." I said, "What you say, sir?" You said this is you're on the white people's side. The colored people's side are over here. So I went over to that side and I got my corned beef sandwich and my Coke. And I was saying to myself, he doesn't know that I'm Steve McField. I'm Lemuel McField, grandson from Cayman. He doesn't know that. And I had my grandfather's emblem badge for the yacht club on my jacket. And I was saying, that man's a fool. He doesn't know who I am. That pride that we had, that dignity that we had, that we carried so elegantly all over the world. I wanted to raise the whole episode of The Lost Horizon this morning, but I didn't have a chance to do that. When Lord Mountbatten's yacht had to be taken back to England from Jamaica. Yeah. And the Jamaica Board of Trade, which is the Jamaica Harbour Master, recommended a Caymanian crew. Captain Tom Diaz, my grandfather, Lee Godfrey, and some other people with just their initials, E.E. Banks and J.E. Banks and whatnot, but 7 of them sailed that ship up to England. And just as they got in the Bay of Biscay, down the south of London, 2 o'clock in the morning, the ship caught a fire. They were all saved. That story is in the New York Times, in the Baltimore Sun, and in the Jamaica Gleaner. At night on the 8th, that the ship caught a fire on the 8th of May, 1938, and the SOS went out, and the report came out on the 9th of May. Not a thing about it in the archives here. That's the dignity that Caymanians had, that they could be recommended to sail a ship that was belonged to the royal family people all the way up there. And today, to see how they have beaten us back. They have pushed us back into the swamp. They have pushed us back into history. They have pushed us back into anti-slavery, into slavery, and they have pushed us back into poverty. And I see Caymanians now with their hands out. Their hands out for food and shelter.
Yep. Yep.
And when Dr. Teresa Pitcairn and Dr. Roy Borden and myself was offering them a hands up,
they rejected it.
And that's, I feel so uncomfortable having to come to talk about that today on the radio.
So one of our listeners said, it's such a great delight and pleasure to have 4 generational Caymanian families having such an important dialogue in and about our beloved Cayman. The Bordens, Andersons, McFields and Connors. It's always a great privilege to listen to Radio Cayman. Thank you all. Thanks to all these individuals and Radio Cayman's management and staff for always bringing our country the important things that matter, being in our past history or future, being it our past history or future. Thank you. And that's coming from Mr. Curtis Powell. So, folks, I want to leave you with this because it's very important. And I'd never heard about this until Mr. Roy Borden, Dr. Roy Borden mentioned it this morning, the Willie Lynch letter and the making of a slave, right? So here is what it said. It said, the black slave, after receiving this indoctrination, shall carry on and will become self-refueling and self-generating for hundreds of years, maybe thousands. Don't forget, you must pitch the old black male versus the young black male. The young black male against the old black male. You must use the dark-skinned slaves versus the light-skinned slaves, and the light-skinned slaves versus the dark-skinned slaves. You must use the female versus the male, and the male versus the female. You must also have all your white servants and overseers distrust all blacks. But it is necessary that your slaves trust and depend on us. They must love, respect, and trust only us. My question this morning is, are we still in that position today? Are we still in that position today?
We are.
That is the challenge. And to your point, maybe we continue to have these conversations, at least to engage the community, to start to talk about it. This is less to do with race in my mind and more to do with where we are as a community and how we're going to extricate ourselves from this particular situation.
Exactly.
And because there ain't no soldiers coming around to come and save people, and that now opens another conversation when you look at the composition of our RCIP. People don't want to talk about it, but I'm saying we need to have some come to Jesus moments where we start talking about the truth and our reality and how we're going to move forward as a community.
Okay, I'm going to just share one more, if I may, Miss Susan, one more comment came in on WhatsApp. It says, we can't forget, it says, thank you so much. When you hear where their hearts are, wait on when the election time comes around. Mr. Connor, you're very humble and intelligent. Thanks for your continued contribution. I didn't mean to read that about me, but they're certainly very thankful for this conversation and the knowledge and insight that our panelists has brought to this conversation as well. Everyone is really so commending of you this morning, and we hope that we can have more of these conversations as well. We have to have them. We have to put it out there in the public domain. No one is trying to overthrow anything. We're just trying to free you from that mental slavery that we have. And when we look at the year 1712, and we consider that here we are in the year 2026, and we find ourselves in similar positions, something has got to be wrong. I want to thank all of those who contributed this morning. Thank our panelists as well. Don't forget, we are our brothers and our sisters keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to whoever charge it, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want or even those who crave. So have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Don't forget to join Mr. Charles Glidden Shallow at 12:15 for Talk It In. As usual, we ask the good Lord to continue to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record, proudly brought to you by
Brand Source Home Gallery, inspiring luxury. Doctors Hospital, peace of mind is important when life happens. Doctors Hospital, always there for you. Call 949-6066. And Cayman Airways, call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. Kirk Market, experience a world of choice. JN Money, from abroad to Yad. And Cineco, keeping Cayman covered.
Yesterday,
today,
always and forever.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.